April 1945, Ohrdruf, Germany. A woman in a clean white apron stood at the edge of a ditch and pressed a handkerchief to her nose. She was not crying. She was not looking at the bodies. She was looking at her shoes, making sure they did not touch the mud at the edge of the pit. 30 feet away, a pile of human bones still smoldered on a blackened wooden pyre. The smoke drifted toward her. She stepped back. She had lived 4 miles from this place for 11 years. She said she had never known. That was the moment everything became a question. Not about war, not about soldiers, about what it means to say you did not know, and whether the world is allowed to believe you. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe. We tell the stories about World War II that show what justice looks like when no one else will deliver it. His name was Private First Class Thomas Ohrdruf. He was 22 years old, from Macon, Georgia. He had joined the army because his older brother had, and because there was nothing in Macon that summer that felt more important than what was happening in Europe. Thomas was not a philosopher, he was not a poet. He was a quiet young man who fixed Jeep engines and wrote letters to his mother every Thursday without fail. But on the morning of April 4th, 1945, something happened to Thomas Ohrdruf that he would spend the next 50 years trying to describe, and never fully could. His unit, part of General George S. Patton's Third Army, rolled into a place called Ohrdruf. It was a labor camp, a subcamp of the Buchenwald system. The SS had evacuated it days earlier. They had tried to clean it up. They had not succeeded. Thomas's sergeant, a man named Raymond Briggs, 34 years old, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, was the kind of soldier who had seen everything and been moved by none of it. Raymond had survived Tunisia, Sicily, and the Hurtgen Forest. His hands did not shake, his voice did not rise. He was the steadiest man Thomas had ever known. And when Raymond Briggs stepped through the gate at Ohrdruf and saw what was inside, he sat down in the dirt and could not stand back up for 6 minutes. What they found was this: stacked bodies frozen in the positions they had died in. Charred skeletons on a wooden pyre that the SS had lit and then abandoned before it finished burning. Evidence of torture on every surface. A gallows still standing. Prisoners too weak to walk, sitting against walls, staring at the Americans with eyes that no longer expected anything from anyone. "Briggs," Thomas said. "Briggs, we need to—" "Give me a minute," Briggs said. "Sarge, I said give me a minute, son." Thomas gave him the minute. Then he walked to the nearest building and vomited outside the door. Word traveled up the chain of command the way all terrible things do. Slowly at first, and then all at once. Lieutenant Harry Parker, 28 years old, from Cleveland, Ohio, received the initial report from Sergeant Briggs at 0900 hours. Parker had grown up the son of a city councilman. He believed in process. He believed in documentation. He believed that every situation, no matter how extreme, had a correct procedure. He read Briggs's report twice, folded it carefully, and said, "I need this in writing and on Colonel Merritt's desk by noon." "It's already written," Briggs said. "I just handed it to you. I mean a formal report." "Lieutenant," Briggs said quietly, "there are 400 bodies in that camp." Parker looked at him. "I understand that, Sergeant. With respect, sir, I don't think you do." "Not yet." Colonel James Merritt read the report at 12:15 hours. He was 51 years old, from Denver, Colorado, and he had spent 30 years in the United States Army, believing that he had developed a complete map of what human beings were capable of doing to each other. Ohrdruf tore that map in half. He called his aide in and said, "Get me Patton's headquarters, right now." The call reached Patton that afternoon. His response was 3 words: "I'll be there." He arrived on April 12th, 8 days after the first soldiers entered the camp. He came by jeep, the way he always came, fast, no ceremony, a small cloud of dust announcing him before he was visible. Soldiers along the road straightened instinctively when they saw the vehicle. 2 stars, that jaw, that helmet. Patton stepped out without a word and walked directly into the camp. He did not speak for 20 minutes. He walked through every building. He stopped at the pyre. He crouched down and looked at something on the ground that no one else could see from where they were standing. Then he walked back to where Generals Eisenhower and Bradley were waiting. They had arrived earlier that morning, and he said quietly, to no one in particular, "We have been fighting the wrong thing. We thought we were fighting an army. We were fighting this." Eisenhower stood beside him and said nothing. Bradley looked away. It was at that moment that the mayor of Ohrdruf arrived. He had been summoned by American officers. He came in his best clothes, which struck several soldiers as obscene. He was a soft-spoken man, 60 years old, who had been the mayor of this town for 9 years. He stood at the entrance to the camp and said through a translator that he wished to express his horror at what he was seeing. He said that the people of Ohrdruf had not known. He said the camp had been operated by the SS, not by the town. He said the townspeople were ordinary people, farmers, shopkeepers, teachers. He says they didn't know, the translator told Patton. Patton looked at the mayor for a long moment. Then he looked at the camp around them. 4 miles, 11 years. The smoke, the trains that passed through town. The smell that every farmer in a 4-mile radius would have noticed on a warm afternoon. "Ask him," Patton said, "how far his house is from this gate," the translator asked. The mayor answered, 4 kilometers, the translator said. Patton nodded slowly. He did not raise his voice. He said, "A man who sleeps 4 kilometers from a place like this and says he smelled nothing has either no nose or no conscience, and I no longer care which." Every able-bodied German civilian in the town of Ohrdruf and in the surrounding villages was to be brought to the camp. They were to dress in their best clothes. They were to walk through every building. They were to see every body, every instrument of torture, every burned bone on the unfinished pyre. And when they had seen it all, they were to bury the dead with their own hands. It was Colonel Merritt who raised the first objection. He found Patton alone that evening, studying a map he was not really reading. "Sir," Merritt said, "some of these people genuinely may not have known the full extent of what—" "They knew something," Patton said. "With respect, sir, we can't be certain of that. Some of them are old women. Some are—" "Merritt." Patton set the map down. "Do you know what a witness is?" "Sir, a witness is someone who sees a thing happen and carries it forward. These people did not witness this. They allowed themselves not to witness it, and now they will. They will see everybody. They will touch the ground those people died on. And when they go home tonight, they will know. They will know for the rest of their lives. And maybe, 50 years from now, when someone in this town says it didn't happen, there will be someone else in the room who was here, who buried the dead, who cannot say they didn't know." Merritt was quiet for a moment. "And if some of them truly were innocent, sir, what do we owe them? What did those people in there owe them?" Patton said. He picked up the map again. "Dismissed, Colonel." The following morning, 1,200 German civilians were marched to Ohrdruf. They came in groups, organized by American soldiers who moved through the streets of the town with a quiet, exhausted efficiency. Some of the civilians wept before they even reached the gate. Some walked in silence. Some tried to look away as they passed the first building and were told firmly to look forward. Thomas Ohrdruf stood at the entrance and watched them file in. An elderly woman stopped in front of him. She was perhaps 70 years old. She was wearing a black dress and a hat with a small silk flower on the brim. She looked at Thomas with eyes that were trying to say something. He was never sure what, and then she walked through the gate. By midday, the digging had begun. German men in their good clothes, with American shovels, moving through a labor camp in the April mud. Some worked without speaking, some prayed quietly. One man collapsed and had to be helped up by an American medic, which struck Thomas as one of the stranger things he had ever seen. An American soldier helping a German civilian back to his feet so that the German could continue digging graves for the people his country had killed. That evening, the mayor of Ohrdruf and his wife were found dead in their home. They had taken their own lives. When Patton was informed, he said nothing for a long time. Then he said, "I suppose he finally knew." Patton never mentioned the incident again. For him, it was simply another decision that needed to be made. Weeks later, on a Tuesday afternoon in May, Thomas Ohrdruf sat in a field outside a village whose name he had already forgotten, and wrote a letter to his mother. He tried to explain what he had seen at Ohrdruf. He wrote 3 sentences and then stopped. He folded the paper and put it in his pocket. He never finished the letter, but he kept the unfinished 3 sentences for the rest of his life folded in the back of his Bible, where they remained when he died in 1987 at the age of 64. His daughter found them while going through his things. She read them. Then she read them again. The 3 sentences said, "Mom, I am not sure I can write this down. I am not sure words work here, but someone has to remember it, so I will try." He never tried again. But he never forgot, and neither his daughter said at his funeral did anyone who was there that April morning, soldier or civilian, American or German, guilty or not. They all carried it forward. That was the point. That was always the point. Would you have marched those civilians through the camp, or would you have let them go home and live with whatever they already knew? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more stories about World War II and the moments when ordinary people were forced to face extraordinary truth, make sure to subscribe